I didn't want to die, but I couldn't imagine living the way I was living anymore. Now that you know what you can have and it seems so far away, what the hell? But then something inside of me said, create yourself, create yourself.
Before we dive in, it's important to remember that the information we provide is for informational purposes only. Every situation is unique, and decisions regarding your health or legal matters should be made after consulting with your own doctor or lawyer. Our aim is to inform and empower, but personal circumstances require personalized advice. Hi, welcome to another episode of Justice in Scrubs. I'm attorney Richard Hastings, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Dr. Jeff Michaelis. Hello today.
And today we have an amazing guest with us, a gentleman by the name of Tony Ferraiolo. Tony, welcome to the program.
I am super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So why don't you start off by telling us about your background?
Yeah, so, I'm old now, but, listen, I've had a very interesting life. I started life as a female and transitioned to a male in 2005, started my transition anyway. And a lot of people, when they hear that from me, the way I look now, are shocked. They're like, what are you talking about? And a lot of people who know how successful I am and how happy I am, who knew me prior to transition, can't believe I'm the person I am today. And a lot of people say to me, like, how different is it? And I'm going to be very vulnerable, and I'm always honest when I'm interviewed, that prior to transition, my nightly decision was, did I want to live the next day?
Wow.
And then after transition, I can't wait until tomorrow. That feeling of going from hopelessness to hopefulness just because I was able to be myself in my body and in my brain, right? And not getting anyone around me to say that I couldn't be who I was because I was old enough to transition and without having parents involved or anything like that, really drew me to the work that I'm internationally known for, is that working with trans and non-binary youth and their families,
Let me ask you the question about, the hopelessness and the hopefulness. So what actually did that feel like? Where before you transitioned, you felt a certain way that was, are you going to take your life by the end of the day?
Yeah.
Versus you wake up now and you're just full of energy and ready to go. What was that?
When you're living in a world where you think no one will accept you if you're your true self. I knew I wasn't. Before I transitioned, I identified as a lesbian. Now, let me just clarify. There's a big misconception that all trans men like me were lesbians first, and that's not true. Okay, but for me, that was my life, and I was in a community that I felt saved my life in a way, because I kind of fit in, but I really didn't, because I knew that I wasn't female. I had a male brain. Okay, so back in the day when I transitioned, there wasn't a lot of people talking about this. People thought, that trans people were mentally ill. And that's a lot of people think that. And I can tell you this: being trans doesn't mean you're crazy, but being trans can make you crazy. Mm-hmm. It really can. So that's the hard part: is how can you live in a world where you don't see yourself being accepted for who you are? And it's a deep feeling. Everybody in the world has a gender identity, and your gender identity is your sense and my sense of who we are. Male, female, something else, both or neither.
When did you know, I assume first you weren't feeling good, and then when did you realize that the reason why you don't feel good is because you're in the wrong gender?
Well, the first...
Or was there an evolution? Was there a slow process, or it happened like that?
It didn't happen like that. The first memory I have of feeling like what's happening, I was 5, and I was outside playing football or baseball or whatever with my older brother, and he took his shirt off and I took my shirt off, and my mother, Italian mother, screaming, get in the house, put your shirt on, only boys take their shirts off. And I said to her, but I am a boy. And she says, no, you're not. You're not a boy. I'm going to be honest with you. That moment, even though I was so young, changed me. It changed me. I was like, I am. And I felt like everybody was lying to me. I never fit in. I was bullied in school. I was bullied in school so bad that I became a bully, And then a lot of stuff was happening in my life outside of my gender identity, sexual abuse and, just verbal abuse. And I started self-harming at a very young age. And it's amazing because for so many years, I would say, why is all this happening to me? How can, I was Catholic, I believed in God, and when all this stuff was happening, there was a time in my life where I was like, what God would allow this to happen to a kid? Okay, so for many years, it was just like, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. So there was a lot of stuff that was happening. I was losing my spirituality. I was losing myself. I didn't trust any adult in my life, so things were super hard. But I can tell you this, that the moment I transitioned, my life began. And it was at an older age. I think I was like 39. Yeah, because I'm 61 now. So, I was 39. So when people tell me that young kids, how can a young kid tell us if they're male or female? I want to ask you, what's your gender identity?
Right.
What's your gender identity?
I'm a man.
How do you know you're male?
Because I have male organs?
No, that's separate. Your gender identity is not connected to your genitalia.
I guess I was told, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. And I put you on the spot for one reason.
Fine.
Now, how do we expect children to tell adults what you couldn't just tell me? We expect them to verbalize that in a clear way. How do you know that you're a girl? How do you know that you're a boy? And we're setting them up for failure because nobody can explain that. When you said to me, I know because I have male, genitalia, your genitalia is not attached to your gender identity. And I want to just explain to you this way because this is how I explain to all people. When you're born, someone looks at your body and they guess what your gender identity is going to be. And then when that baby gets old enough, they tell the adults if they guessed right or not. Because if you were, God forbid, in a car accident or had cancer and they had to remove your penis, because that happens, right? Would you wake up from that procedure feeling like a woman? Would you wake up from that procedure feeling like no gender? Of course not. You would wake up from that procedure still being the person you are today. So your genitalia is not connected to your gender identity. How do you like that? You like that.
That's an interesting question, but I would go back to say that a doctor does not take a guess at your sexual identity. A doctor says what your sex is.
Yeah, what your sex is, and sex and gender identity is separate. It's not the same.
I will agree that people say that. I don't know, and I can see what you're saying, how there is a difference.
Yeah.
But I think there's no question that you're identified by your sex.
Sex assigned at birth.
And then a great question that you asked Jeff is, how do you know that you're a male? And I mean, we all just say, oh, I'm a guy or I'm a male, but you don't really think about why.
Yeah.
What is it that I think that a female does not think? I mean, I could come up with some things, but what is it that 100 men could write down things and say, this is why I'm a man, and have them all match up? And I think the answer would be very different.
I don't know if all of us made that list, if anything would match up. I mean, how do you know you're a man?
And I think a lot of it is because of roles.
Yeah, gender roles.
And I have friends of mine that are retired. So if you are a lawyer for your whole life, and then you retire, all of a sudden you've lost part of your identity. You're no longer a lawyer.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a father, maybe you're a coach of some type or a speaker, but I think men tend to identify themselves as the role they play.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that generally on the male side, it's career things that are very important, and on the female side, it's family things that are very important.
Yeah.
So True. I think that's the only way, but again, these things don't line up.
Yeah.
But that's a fascinating question.
Yeah. It is.
Wow.
It is.
So what about your so you go through this until you're 39. And what do you graduate from high school? Do you go to college? What job do you have? How difficult is that? Do your friends know that you're not feeling the sex that you've been assigned at birth and how you're feeling differently?
Yeah, no, nobody knew. Nobody knew that I was struggling because I didn't know. The only thing I knew about trans people was that they were losing their families and they were being murdered and they were basically alone. So I didn't tell anybody that I was suffering. I graduated from high school. Listen, I became a really bad kid. I was really, I was so angry. And, anger is a fueled emotion, right? So anger is caused by sadness or fear. And I lived in fear most of my life that somebody was going to kill me. I wasn't raised by really cool people, even though right now my parents I have a much different relationship with them. But back when I was younger, it was horrifying to be in that house. So school wasn't really a good place for me. Again, I was bullied and I became a bully. And so when I graduated, I was such a bad kid. When I graduated, they didn't let me go to the graduation ceremony. I was forbidden to go. They were afraid I was going to do something. So they came to my door at my house and they knocked on the door and said, "Congratulations, you graduated," and they handed me my diploma.
So what did you do that was bad?
I mean, I would pull fire alarms. I would, I was physical with other people. I was just not. There was a point in my school career that I sat down with the counselor and the principal and my mother, and I said, if I have to come to school, I'm going to end my life. So they had me on a homebound program.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Who taught you at home?
And they used to come to the door, and I would be so high because I used to smoke pot all day, and they would knock on the door. I would lay on the floor and hide so they wouldn't see me, and then they would just leave. So a lot of my education I learned myself. There was so much anxiety around going to school. The schools do the same thing. They cater to the kids who conform. And the kids that have a hard time, it's just like, a good friend of mine said, schools think that they're a circle and the kids are circles and they can just fit into that school. That's not the way it works. Everybody's different. So I graduated and then I went to art school. I'm an artist. I've been an artist. Artwork took me away from self-harm. That's how I got away from self-harm. And it was so important to me that when I started working with these young kids, that I started an art program for young kids. And when I was thinking about the program, I started this in 2008. I was like, create, don't cut. Let's bring them into a creative,
that's great.
a creative environment where they can create stuff and be around kids that are just like them. And, that saved me and it's saving them, which is awesome.
So how was puberty?
It was horrible. It was horrible. Now my body is saying something to me that I didn't want to hear. Now my body is saying, you know what? You might think you're a boy, but look at this. And it was depressing. I was suicidal every month. I would plan my life around that week that I had to deal with my period. It was horrible.
So I think the argument on the other side is that your brain does not stop developing until you're 25 or 26 years of age. So between the lack of experience and the lack of having your brain, evolve to the point where it's as developed as it can be, people argue that young people are not fully capable of making these life-altering decisions.
So they're not making these decisions. They're not going to a doctor saying, giving me blockers. The doctor, the parents, and the child are making the decision. And the kid, at that age, pre-puberty, because it's at Tanner stage 2 where they start administering a puberty blocker, they well know who they are, okay? Again, they use the same medication on non-trans kids, so why would you use it on them? They're not young. They're not too young, right? So I'm just saying. That's my
for
my
me,
point.
and we talked about this with Sarah, and Sarah.
Yeah, I do.
When I think back to the extent that I can to when I was going through puberty, it was a shit show, for everyone that goes through it. There are so many challenges that go with puberty and kind of coming into who you are. But to be a trans individual and basically to be living a lie, you go out and you act every day as if you're somebody that internally you're not.
Yeah.
It must be.
It's pure suffering. So why would we want kids to suffer through unwanted puberty if we can block it from happening?
And I think the challenge is that there's not enough PR for trans people to show the non-trans population, especially the side of the population, and I've said this before, they're ignorant, which doesn't mean that they're stupid or that they're prejudiced. They just don't know. And that's one of the reasons we do this podcast, is to give people information to educate them about certain things. And certainly your journey and where you've been and what you're doing is a part of that. But to learn about that and then say, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
It helps you sit up. And it was funny with Sarah. I said to Sarah, you've really changed my mind. She said, well, I can close my not-for-profit now. I've accomplished my objective.
That's
I feel
it.
like,
one person
thank
at
you,
a time.
goodbye.
One person at a time.
This is a good time to talk about your nonprofit or your associate or your...
So I was doing this work for years, and about 4 years ago, I was approached by Healthcare Advocates International out of Stratford, Connecticut, and they said, listen, we want to start an LGBTQ plus youth and family program. Would you direct it? I fell over. I mean, that was my dream job. I've been, meditating on that. Honestly, I would say, I just want to direct a youth and family program. I don't want to set my alarm, because I was a manufacturing manager for 20 years, transitioned on the job, all that stuff. But I had to set my alarm for 5:15 every morning to get up. But anyway, so I started with them 5 years ago. We started the youth and family program, and it's been super successful. We help hundreds of families every year. We go to schools and we train, educators on cultural competency and kindness. And, I just did a full assembly in Hamden, Connecticut, 250 students just talking about love and kindness. Just be kind to each other. We're not all going to have the same views. We're not going to have all the same, but just be kind. In a world right now that is so filled with hate, we have to throw that message out there, because the young kids need to hear it. They really do.
You told us a story about how you talked to someone when they were on a stretcher in a psych ward. We want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, this young man was really suffering, and I spoke to his parents, but I didn't speak to him yet. And the mom said, we're in a hospital. We're in the psych emergency room, and I don't know what to do. I said, put him on FaceTime. Let him FaceTime with me. And she was like, I don't think they'll allow it. I said, they know me there. They'll allow it. Just get him on the phone. So he got on the phone with me, and I said, hey, how's it going? And listen, every kid, I don't care where they are, psych unit, not, they always answer the same thing. I'm good. So I said, all right. I said, but listen, I heard that you're suffering with gender body dysphoria. Now, body dysphoria is the depression and unhappiness that comes with the mismatch between our gender and our bodies, okay? And it can cause a lot of distress and a lot of pain. So when I said to him, okay, well, we can help you with that. What do you need? That's it. What do you need to feel better? I seen this kid's face go really, like we said, hopelessness to hopefulness in a second, because now he's sitting in front of somebody who says, you know what, dude, I've been there. I've done it. You can do it. I'm going to make sure it happens for you.
Wow.
It's that simple.
Wow.
It's that simple. And I don't think he's ever been back in the hospital. He's living a life that is filled with love and happiness. Parents are accepting. He got all the medical care that he needed, and he is excelling.
Right. We know who that kid is, and we heard about it. He went from hopeless to hopeful.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that. Listen, the Trevor Project has a survey. I think it was 2023, the latest survey on mental health. And I think Sarah talked about this because I watched the podcast. By the way, great podcast. That one supportive adult in an LGBTQ kid's life will cut the risk of suicide by 40%. Wow. 40%. It's a huge number. Why wouldn't I be doing this work? Why wouldn't I?
I mean, you've literally saved lives.
Absolutely.
And if you want to think about what gets you up in the morning, I mean, that's up at the top of the list.
When I first started doing this work and parents would come to me crying, you saved my kid. I didn't know how to react to it. I'd be like, oh, no. And then somebody said to me, you know what, just say, it's my honor. Because it really is an honor if you think about, listen, I've been doing this so long. I was at an event for Q+, an organization in Connecticut, youth organization, great organization. And it was just like their fundraiser. And all of a sudden, I see somebody coming at me, and I was like, is that Dusty? Now, this kid was 13, They're 30-something years old now. They're an educator. And this kid hugged me. This guy now hugs me and has tears in his eyes. I can't believe it's you. I can't believe it's you. And I'm like, what? I said, and it's amazing because they're all getting older and I'm getting younger. How does that happen?
Right.
You know? So
In a blink of an eye.
In a blink of an eye. In a blink of an eye.
So let me just go back, if I could, for a minute and talk about the transition. So you're you're working in a manufacturing facility, and then you transition from female to male.
Yeah.
So what is that whole process like? I'm certain there are people that are accepting, there are people that are not accepting, your family, your friends. What's that all like?
So back in my lesbian days, as I like to call them, I started a band because I'm a singer-songwriter too.
Wow.
Yeah. And the name of the band was Vertical Smile. Do you not love it? Do you not love it? I love it. I know. Some people get it right away. Some people don't. But anyway.
I think I got it. Jeff didn't.
I got it now. It took me a little while.
How did I figure that was going to be the case? But anyway, so the lead singer of Vertical Smile, Jean Dolan, she knew who I was before I did. Like, I knew that I wasn't a female, but I didn't know like what verbiage. Nobody was talking about trans, honestly. Like, it's not like it was today. So she came over my house one night with some video of VCR tape. I'm aging myself. And it was Gender Knots, and it was a documentary about trans people. And one of the scenes was 3 trans guys walking on a beach. It sounds like I'm going to start a joke, but I'm not. 3 trans guys walking on a beach, and one of them unbuttoned their shirt and said, "Look, I had my surgery done." And I was like, oh my God, I'm trans. That was the moment where I was like, wow, this is amazing. I know who I am. Then I got really scared because I couldn't imagine, now that I know that what I could have, if I do that, will I lose everything? Will I lose my partner at the time? Will I lose my family? Would I lose my job? I didn't know what to do. So I actually went down to a beach to kill myself.
Ugh.
Because I was like, if I wasn't happy as a lesbian, I was not a happy lesbian. How can I ever be happy as a trans person? And I was sitting there crying because, you know, and you hear this a lot from my community, but I can tell you that I didn't want to die, but I couldn't imagine living the way I was living anymore. Now that you know what you can have and it seems so far away, what the hell? But then something inside of me said, create yourself, create yourself.
We wanted to take a quick break to remind you about our sponsor, findagreatattorney.com. Dealing with the aftermath of an accident or injury can be overwhelming. And the last thing you want to worry about is finding the right lawyer. Findagreatattorney.com simplifies the process by connecting you with one of the top attorneys in your area who specializes in your specific type of case. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, suffered a slip and fall, or experienced medical malpractice, findagreatattorney.com has a network of experienced lawyers ready to help. And remember, their service is completely free, so you can focus on your recovery without worrying about the cost of legal representation. If you or someone you know needs legal assistance, don't hesitate to visit findagreatattorney.com and let them match you with one of the best lawyers in your area for your needs.
So loud, like I thought it was somebody standing next to me. It was so weird. And all of a sudden, something came over me and said, oh my God, I have the power to create the person I've always wanted to be. But who was that person? So I started thinking about what Tony would look like. You know, he'd be tattooed, have a goatee. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. He'd be bald. He'd be bald. No, it's kidding.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
The baldness came with the testosterone. Thank you, testosterone. But anyway, but then I went a little bit deeper. Like, what would I feel inside? I didn't want to be angry anymore. I wanted to be the type of person that when you stood in front of me, my energy alone made you smile. That lightness. And I just took baby steps and started becoming Tony. And I started creating myself. I mean, look, I got a tattooed in my arm. The person you're interviewing next tattooed that to my arm. That's how long I've known her. But it was a moment that I'll never forget. That realization that I had the power to become the person I've always wanted to be. Now, financially, surgeries aren't cheap. And back then, no insurance company was covering anything. But I just happened to be in a car accident a few years before that. I had, a couple of grand, and I had about $15,000 in the bank.
Thank God to your personal injury lawyer. We should be plugging personal injury lawyers.
Yeah, thank God for him. I forgot his name, but he was great. He was great. He got me a lot of money. But I was able to get my top surgery when I needed to get my top surgery. Going into surgery, it was crazy. I was a big guy. They took about 4 or 5 pounds off of me. So I was a big guy. I get out of the surgery, and I felt great. And I remembered the first thing I said was, "Are they gone? Are they gone?" But driving home from the hospital the next day, I said, I felt so freaking great. When I looked in the mirror that first time and my mind and my body matched, it was life-changing, right? And I said, you shouldn't just have this feeling of wholeness just because I had the money to do it. So my best friend, Drew Levisser, and I co-founded the Jim Collins Foundation back in 2008, and that's a foundation that funds gender-affirming surgeries for trans people all over the country. I sat as the board president for 10 years, let it go in 2018 because it really was never our foundation. It was the community's foundation. And I believe since we started the foundation, they have given out 75 surgeries to people all over the country. Yeah. So, I have a tendency of turning something that happened to me that was bad but then became good and to give it to people. I believe that everybody deserves to feel the way like I feel every day when I wake up now. And it shouldn't be because you have the money to do it, and it shouldn't be because, everybody around you is supporting you. Listen, I work with a lot of trans people who are alone. Became a certified life coach in 2010, and I coach people, and Healthcare Advocates International now lets me coach people on their dime. So could you imagine people being able to access life coaching because it's not covered by insurance, of course, and it costs money. So now I can give that away for free to my community. I think it's great.
Wow.
So how was the relationship between you and your family during this time?
My siblings I spoke to. My parents I wasn't speaking to at the time that I transitioned.
Siblings, what do you have? What number child are you?
I have a twin. And then I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Oh, you have a twin.
I have a twin.
So a twin is a
twin brother.
Twin brother.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So your siblings were all supportive?
Yes. But my parents, I stopped a relationship with them prior to me even transitioning, so they weren't in the picture. And then they came back into the picture after I transitioned. Now, an Italian mother coming over to my house the first time to see me and I told her, she found out about it, but I was like, oh my God, I'll put the coffee on. She goes, make sure you have coffee. Okay, Ma, I'll have coffee. And I thought when I opened my door that she was just going to drop to the floor and start screaming, oh, Lord God, save my child or something. This is weird, but it's my mother, love her. I opened the door and she was like, oh my God, you look just like my doctor. And I was like, what? That's what I was worried about. But, at that moment when she sat down, after I was like, what is happening? She actually sat there and said, I'm sorry I wasn't a good mother. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. And I started a relationship with my mother. But my father still couldn't accept me for years. And then he finally came around. And now he's my biggest fan. So, when you open your heart, see, you can't force people to accept you, no matter who you are. People need to walk into acceptance, right? And that's what I did. I kept my heart open and my soul open to people to walk in. And listen, some people I had to say, get out. Because I promised myself when I was on that beach and I said I can create myself, that I would only surround myself with people who love and honor me, period. It's so important to me to have people around me that champion for me,
What about the workplace? And you started working as a female.
Yep.
Then you transitioned to a male.
Yes.
And you're in the same job.
65 people working for me.
65 people working for you.
Yeah, I was a manager of a big manufacturing company.
So what was that like?
Well, I got to tell you, I was actually Fortune 500 Small Business Magazine, when it was a magazine, actually did an article about me. and the workplace. So when I came back to work, I had a decision to make because I always had a little facial hair, even before the testosterone. My mother has a goatee. Don't tell her I told you. Okay? She'd kill me. But that morning, I remember that morning standing there going to shave, and I was like, and I remember throwing the razor saying, no, dude, you have a window of opportunity here. Go back into the workplace yourself, who you are. Go back into the workplace as Tony. You know, I lost a lot of blood during the surgery, so I only could start part-time. I pulled up to that building. I got to tell you, talk about anxiety. I started saying the serenity prayer for whatever reason. It was like, just, get me through it. My office was in the center of the manufacturing floor. So I had to walk by everybody. And they didn't know whether to look at my chest or my chin. They were like, what? And the person that's my right-hand person, who's a very religious woman, came in and said, I'm not calling you Tony or he, that's for sure. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to ask you to honor, I don't care what you do outside of work, but when you're here, just honor who I am, and I'll honor who you are. The owner and president of the company comes into my office, and he sat down, and he was like, he now, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, I'll let everybody know. And he set the tone. But what they didn't talk about was what bathroom I was going to use. I could have walked right into the men's room on the production floor, but these guys have been working for me for, 10 years? I'm not going to do that. I'm not a jerk, okay? I know that would have been uncomfortable for people. So I would hold it in until I left for work. And now I start full-time, and they still haven't told me what bathrooms to use. There were 2 single-use bathrooms in the front office, male and female, but nobody said I could use it. So I would leave work at lunchtime, drive down to a gas station, use the bathroom there, and come back to work until finally I approached the vice president / HR person, and I said, got to ask you a question. What bathroom should I use? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. We've been thinking about that. You just use the men's room in the front, the single-use one. That's fine. I said, okay. And the first time I go to use it, there's an office right near there. Was a couple of guys, and this guy that worked in the sales department says out loud, and I heard him, well, I hope she, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to say he, puts the seat back up. And I was like, so I peeped in, and I said, I'll make a deal with you. If it's up, I'll put it back up. If it's down, I'll leave it down. Is that okay with you? And I reported him, and they fired him. Really? They fired him. I came up with I had to prove myself. I had to prove myself to these people. I can tell you that I was a much better leader when I was able to walk in as myself. I wouldn't have want to work for me before I transitioned. I was kinder. I was more open. I started a meditation program there for people to meditate in the mornings. I mean, I was a totally different person. And I left after 21 years. But I left with people understanding that it doesn't matter how somebody identifies. That stuff doesn't matter to me. It wouldn't matter to me if one of you identified as a female, male, neither. But are you a kind person? Are you going to bring me anything into my life? Are you going to make me smile and laugh? Do you honor people? Do you help people that are less fortunate than you? That's all that matters to me. Mm-hmm. I don't care about anything else about you, anything.
I want to tell you a story. So I was in the airport in North Carolina a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I had some time, and I was just sitting there, and some kid comes over, and we just start talking. He's 19 years old. He just got engaged. And so I told him about my podcast, because that's what I do. I tell everybody about my podcast.
Good.
And he looks at the episodes, and one of them was on trans. And he says to me, I'm looking forward to being a parent, but I can't see myself dealing with that. So I said to him, when you're a parent, you'll do anything for your child. And you need to learn along with your child. You can't force your child to go to left, to go to the right, or go forward or back. You have to help them along their direction. And I said, I want you to watch my other podcast that we had on teenagers and how we need to talk to teenagers and how we need to understand our children because we can't change them or have them make them what they are. So he said to me, the next thing he said to me, what about the Bible? And I said, I'm not really a Bible person, but the Bible's there for you to interpret your life. And maybe you should talk a little about what people say to you about the Bible and why, all this stuff in the Bible that's not favorable to trans.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of things in the Bible that are favorable to trans. And if you ever want to have a guest on to talk about that, one of my best friends, Reverend Aaron Miller, who's an out trans clergyman from Connecticut, would definitely be on board. He's wonderful. But this is what I know. When I first started being public about who I am, Self-Made Man, the documentary just came out. So we were like traveling all over the place, showing it, and people would be in the audience. I'll never forget this. You speak probably publicly sometimes. If you say, okay, I'll take questions now, and somebody raises their hand right away, probably that question is going to be a hard question. So this gentleman stands up, puts his hands up, and he has a flashing cross on his lapel. And I said, oh boy, here we go. And he says, I have one thing to say to you. God doesn't make mistakes. And I said, oh, I agree. I said, God made me trans. And he didn't know what to say.
Because there's nothing to say.
There was nothing to say. God made me trans. When I struggled with religion, a friend of mine, I wrote about this in my memoir. My friend Michelle said to me, just wondering, like, do you believe in God? Like, what's your religious stuff? And I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk. I mean, it's really shut down. A few months later, she came back and asked me the same question. I said, let me ask you a question. What God would do that to a kid? What God would make a kid suffer so much? And she says, Tony, maybe you didn't stop believing in God. Maybe you just stopped having faith in him. That hit me in the heart. I get emotional just talking about it. And she says, have you ever thought that God was setting you up to do the work that you do today, Tony? Maybe all the suffering was so that you can save lives today. I absolutely believe that today. I absolutely believe that when I was cutting myself in the woods by myself, when I was being sexually abused, when I was being emotionally abused, when I was struggling with my gender identity and my periods and all that stuff, that I am now able to sit with these children who don't want to live anymore and say, you know what? I did it, you can do it. I have faith in you. This is what we need to do. This is the steps you need to take, and really talk to their parents. Listen, I'm told I'm charming. Not sure if that's true or not, okay? But I have a way with...
I vote you are charming.
Thank you. But I have a way with kids. I have a way with kids, and I have a way with their parents. Listen, you're right. As a parent, this is when your unconditional love is challenged. Would you rather deny your child of who they know they are and not call them by their choice? See, when kids are young, the only thing they have control over is call me Tony and call me he, right? Their name and pronoun. They don't have control over medical decisions, nothing. If we give them that, they'll feel like they're moving in the right direction, and we can save them. But some parents can't even do that. So would you rather not do that and stand in front of your kid's grave saying, right, shoot, I should have called you Tony? Right. Or are you going to get on board now? That's the question. Now listen, how if they change their mind? How if they change their mind? How if they change their mind? Listen, I've been working with kids for a very long time. In my situation, I haven't had anybody change their mind, okay? It's like 1%. It's such a small percentage of people who shift their gender journey. A lot of people call it detransitioning. I don't like that term. I call it a shift in gender journey. But we don't ask them why. Why? Is it because you're being bullied so bad at home and in school that you're going to... Because this happens a lot. The parents aren't accepting. We don't want them to be homeless. So conform until you can absolutely leave the nest and transition. And that's typically what happens. They go to college, they transition. So we never ask the people who shift why they've shifted, So, but the point is that children know what they need. Listen, if you're 5 or 95 and you're suffering, I guarantee you know what you need to feel better, right?
It's like Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, where he talks about finding your purpose in suffering. And I think the reason you're such an effective and powerful advocate is the fact that you've lived this. You are the person that people can talk to about this and have a deep understanding because of where you've been and what you've been through. And like you said, being out in the woods by yourself and cutting or having your period or being so troubled throughout your life up until your transition made you who you are today and allows you now to save other people's lives. And what a brilliant gift.
You make a good point because I don't look back on my life and say, I wish that never happened. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Listen, we're a blueprint of everything that's ever happened to us, good or bad. If I look back and said, I wish that never happened, I wouldn't be Tony. I wouldn't be the person I am today. So I try to tell people who have like bad struggles, and a lot of trans people want to forget who they were prior to transition. Not me. I honor that person. That was the person who suffered. That was the person who suffered. I'm not suffering anymore because they were strong enough, or I was strong enough at that time to bring me through this journey.
So do you identify with that person, or is that person dead?
No, I identify with that person. Absolutely. It was funny because, hashtag therapy forever. But my therapist, long time ago, probably like 3-4 years ago, said to me, because I used to, in my documentary at the beginning, I say, she was the one who was strong enough. She was the one who said no to all those suicidal thoughts. And she was the one who allowed me to be Tony. And we were having a session and she says, wait a minute, wasn't that you? And I said, oh my God, it was me. And when I said I was the one who was strong enough, how empowering was that? So I don't dissociate myself with the person the person I was prior to transitioning, because it was me. Does that make sense?
It does. So tell us about, the people that you counsel. What are the things, other than the obvious, what are the things that they come to you with that you can help them work through?
Yeah. Well, social transition. That's when we change the outer appearance. So haircuts, clothing, name and pronouns. So nothing medical. That's the younger kids, right? And when I first started doing this work with young kids, they weren't allowed to, it wasn't safe for them to social transition. So they would come into the group with a backpack, go into the bathroom, put their girl clothes on, come out and have a group, and then it's time to leave. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's time to go. Okay, I got to put my boy clothes on again. It was so sad it wasn't even funny. But now it's different now. The times have changed. But a lot of people are suffering because they don't have access to the medical care that they need. Even adults, they're just, they don't have it and they need it. So a lot of people will come we do a lot of referrals. I know a lot of people, medically, legal advocates. I know a lot of people. So people will come to us healthcare advocates in the youth and family program saying, listen, I need this. Where can I get this? And we have a binder drive, a binder. It's not a book binder. A binder is a garment that's like Spanx on steroids that makes somebody's chest flat. Okay. It's life-saving. Some people can't afford it. So 10 years ago, I started a binder drive on my own, and I worked with a manufacturer that he says, if you order one, I'll donate 10.
Wow.
So, but the mailing and everything was out of my own pocket. Healthcare advocates, when I started saying, you know what, put it on our website, so they take care of all of it, so people can come to our website, just apply for the binder drive, and we send a binder. So that's the ways that we're helping the community. We're also giving free anything that has to do with a school with students. There's no charge. We go and we speak to students for absolutely free. And it's something 3 high schools have reached out to me in the past 2 weeks saying, can you come in, please, Tony? Because I've worked with them before. And we want a full assembly, and we want you to talk to them about kindness, not just with the LGBTQ plus, just kindness. And we want you to do it before the election. That's what they're saying. People are getting nervous.
Let's say I'm a 12, 13-year-old, and I think I'm in the wrong body. What would you tell the person to do? And my parents, I'm afraid to talk to my parents, and I don't have a peer that can help me.
So I would say, well, let me talk to your parents. Are you willing for me to talk to your parents?
So they can reach out to your website.
They can reach out to the website. A lot of people just know somebody who knows me.
So as our time is winding down here, I just wanted to get a couple of concluding thoughts from you. And that is, you have this opportunity now to talk to people about what you would like to do to change the way they think about trans individuals. And what would you like to tell them?
I don't even want you to change the way you think about us. Just don't even think about it. We're humans. Drop the trans. I'm a guy. You're a guy. You're a guy. I don't look at you and saying, oh, look at those 2 cisgender people. I don't use that language, right? Transgender people are human beings. We try our best. We try our best to be good human beings, but it's sometimes hard when people are against you. You know what I mean? When people are really throwing stuff that are hurting you or hurting your children, it can make somebody be unwell, But we're doing the best we can. and we're human, and we deserve everything that cisgender people have. We absolutely deserve to have.
And you told an interesting story before we went on, and that was you were giving a talk to, I think it was a church group, and you specifically did not mention the fact that you are trans.
Yeah. And
then halfway through it, you said, "I just want to let you know that I'm trans. Does that affect anyone's view of me currently?" And you had said that.
This older gentleman was like, "Did he just say it used to be a girl?" It was so funny. but I try to do that still now. And about a year ago, I was at a school, and I did that. And there was a woman sitting like 2 rows in, and she just folded her arms and went, "Ugh," like that. And I was like, I said, something shifted. And she was like, "Yeah." I said, I have a feeling that maybe you don't want to be here anymore. And she was like, "I don't." And I said, "And I have a feeling you don't like me anymore." She goes, "I don't like you." And I said, "Can I ask you why?" Because I've always wanted to, I want to know why my gender identity. I said, because I am sure before I came out as trans, you were wondering, who's that really cute, funny tattooed guy? Huh? That's what you were thinking. You weren't thinking anything about my gender identity, but she didn't. Everybody else was laughing. She was like, she could not answer the question why she didn't like me anymore.
Because it's foreign, because it's something she's not used to, because it's
but she couldn't
something aberrational.
She couldn't verbalize it. So I did not, what I didn't do, listen, my superpower is being kind to people who aren't kind to me. Super hard, super powerful.
I don't have that, by the way.
Yeah, it's hard. Hey, listen, it's hard. But throughout the rest of the training, I would say, "Hey, so-and-so, what do you think about that? What do you think?" I didn't ignore her. I'm leaving. They had this luncheon for everybody. They were having like chicken cutlets, some Italian thing. And so I'm leaving, and all of a sudden she yells, "Hey, Tone, okay? Hey, Tone, do you want a chicken cutlet to go? I can make you one, wrap it up." I said, "No, thanks, but thank you." What happened? I shifted her because I wasn't a jerk. I wasn't being a jerk to her. I wasn't yelling at her. I didn't ignore her. I engaged with her. Yeah, what do you think? Well, we got to give these kids hope. That's all they need is hope. Yeah, they need hope that they can be the person they know they are. Nobody is forcing these kids to do anything. That was her. Everybody who stands against this is all about kids transitioning early, and they have no idea of the suffering. They have no idea. I have 2 books out already, Artistic Expressions of Transgender Youth, okay? Powerful books, but the third one is going to come out probably in the next year and a half. Once my memoir is done, I'm going to start working on the third one. And it asks the questions, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to be misgendered? And what are you grateful for? The drawings that have been submitted for what does it feel like to be misgendered, there's slashes and knives in their bodies. We need to see this. If people see it, then they realize the pain, And we just want kids to be happy and healthy, and it's our responsibility as adults to guide them down a road of happiness, right? And try to minimize those emotional roadblocks that come from people loving and honoring them before they come out and then not loving and honoring them afterwards. We have to try to fight that for sure.
I think you're the perfect spokesperson for this, and I showed probably 10 of my friends before I came on. I said, "Oh, this is the gentleman that we're having on the podcast."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What is the guy in the mafia or something? Is that why he's on?" I'm like, no. Is he in a bike gang or something? Did he kill somebody? No. And then I tell them, and they're like, "Wait, what?" And everyone is the same reaction, like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, I love "wait, what?" I get that a lot. Or sometimes I'm training with the people be like, "Well, when I was working, like nobody was telling." The rule at work was, when I transitioned at work, was if we get a new hire, don't tell anybody that Tony's trans. I mean, it's nobody's business. It's private. My gender identity is private. But they did, and this is how I knew it. I would go up to the front office, take the new employee, sit them down, say, "Okay, this is your bench. So-and-so is going to be your lead. I'll circle back in a couple hours to see how you're doing." Then I'll be walking down the plant, and this is the person. They'd be like, No way. That's how I knew they found out.
The telltale sign. How do you feel about the representation of transgender people in either entertainment or the music business?
I think it's getting better. I think they're being more visible. Laverne Cox really changed. I feel that people actually will watch a trans person and say, "Okay, cool." I think that they can use more trans people to play trans people. That would be awesome. you know. But besides that, that's something I don't really follow too much. Too busy saving the world, you know.
Sure. I mean, the one that I saw front and center was, and I guess he was great for the trans community, and then maybe not so great for the trans community, was Dylan. I forget his last name with the Bud Light contract.
Was that a female?
That was a trans female.
Trans woman. Yeah.
Right.
So it would be she.
She.
Yeah. I guess is that when everything like exploded because they made a bottle about her or something? I don't know.
It was a bottle with her on it, and then they took the Bud brand and then started trying to say it wasn't, kind of like the people down south that are drinking Bud, and then they wanted to bring in a new audience, and then I guess the person that was in charge of that was transitioned out of the job.
Yeah, isn't that something? Yeah, I know that it wasn't well received by a lot of people. It was it's sad, but, and what they don't realize is that, I know that they got death threats, I mean, I get death threats sometimes too.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, when you're famous when, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
And we were talking about something which is interesting, that you can't get a certain percentage of the population to love you unless you get a certain percentage of the population to hate you.
Yeah.
So if you have haters, that means you got lovers.
Yeah. That's true.
So you want to talk about how your relationship with the medical community is, and how sometimes their medical community is ignorant about what your needs.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I started training hospitals and medical providers was when I started the support groups, the kids would come in and cry over the way their doctors and, PAs and everybody, APRNs were treating them. So I started training. So I was been training hospitals and doing a lot of cultural competency stuff since like 2006. I had my own really bad experience with a doctor because I was trans. And it was when I had kidney cancer twice. I've been cancer-free for 10 years, but, I went to see this doctor. Back then it was like, is she trans-friendly? That's what we used to say. Now we say, are they trans-educated? Because you can be friendly and not be educated. But the thing she said to me, and I'll make it quick. She said she had to do an internal exam, and I said, why? And as soon as she said that, my whole body started shaking, and any human would know that I was going into a fight or flight. I was having a major anxiety. And I said, no, please. And she said, what are you worried about? It's going to look like an old lady's anyways because there's no estrogen in your body.
Wow.
Now, you'd think I would have gotten up and walked out of that room. I didn't. I was frozen. And we have to remind people that the playing field isn't even when it's a provider and a patient. So I got on the exam table. She started examining me. I was crying. It was horrible. She looked up at me and said, I thought it'd be much more enlarged than what it is. Wow. And I said, please stop. She goes, I'm done. Get dressed. Come out in the hall. I was shaking so much I couldn't even put my pants up. I mean, I was in such distress. And I went out there, and there was another doctor sitting there, and I said, shit, I'm screwed. Something's going on. And he says, listen, we think you have stage 1 cancer. We want you to get a PET scan, and we have to go fishing now, but you're a young guy. We think you're going to be okay. He leaves, and I said to her, is that why I'm still having pain in my back? She goes, no, that's your diverticulitis. I can give you something, but do you want a penis? Because we do that here.
Oh, my God.
And I said, you know what? You don't know who I am because I'm the co-founder of the Jim Collins Foundation, and nobody's putting penises on a Catholic hospital in New Haven, okay? I had to report her. But the scary thing was it was cancer. I had to get a partial kidney removal. You're incapacitated after that surgery. And I was afraid that she was going to find me and hurt me because when I fired her as my provider, because I went back to her a week later and she told me I had 5 years to live, that that I had cancer all over my body. And then a week later they said, oh, we overread the films. Okay? So I fired her. And she would call my provider saying, why isn't he my patient? Why? She was really scary. And I literally had people sleep in my room because I was afraid she was going to find me and hurt me, as unrealistic as that may sound right now. We have to understand that people, when you talk to people, your words matter. And what she said to me, I still have nightmares about. So that's why I have a very good relationship with providers. And we trained them. Listen, there was a trans guy that was pregnant that was having a baby at Yale. I trained them with Vanessa Pomerico, who's another trainer, APRN out of Northeast Medical Group. We went in there and we trained them on how to make this family feel comfortable. in this space because we're at our most vulnerable when we're sick. All right? We all know this because everybody sitting here is a patient sometimes. So we have to do better when we're treating trans and non-binary people. We have to do better because we want them to feel safe when they're in an environment like that. You know?
Why is it that you receive death threats?
Because I work with kids. I'm grooming them. I'm making them trans. And then when Connecticut in 2011, we were fighting to get gender identity and expression added to the anti-discrimination bill, and our opponents called it the bathroom bill. I did an article for the New Haven Register, and man, the things that people said on the comments on that, when they say never read the comments, never read the comments. Well, most people thought that I was a dude transitioning to a female. They didn't know I already did it. They were like, if that guy wants to go in the ladies' room, and I was like, what are they talking about? But anyway.
Why do you think it's difficult for many people to accept trans people?
Because they're trying to. This is what happens. They say trans. Let me think. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it, so it can't exist. I don't understand what it's like to be cisgender. I have no idea what it's like to be born in a body that matches my gender identity, but I absolutely believe that cisgender people exist. Okay? even though trans people are much cooler. Sorry, it's the truth. Stop trying to put my identity into your brain. Right? That's the problem. They don't think it's real because they can't imagine it. You're never going to imagine it. Just honor and you don't have to hang out in my personal bubble, even though it's a great place to be. You just don't have to hurt or hate me or deny me of rights that I deserve to have because you don't think that I should feel the way I feel.
I agree. So do you have trans friends?
I do have trans friends, and I have cisgender friends too. I hope we're friends. I would consider you friends now. And
how is it that I might have a trans friend that I don't know is trans.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
I guess I don't know.
So it doesn't matter. See what
Right.
I'm saying? If I was like that, we were talking about that commercial. If the three of us were tasked to build a bar, and I didn't come out, we would just be laughing the whole time. You know, he'd be hitting his hand with a finger
rocking back and forth in his chair.
Yeah, he'd be rocking back and forth in his chair. Yeah, definitely. But because that's how little it matters. It doesn't matter. Now, if we were building that bar and you were being racist and you were being transphobic or homophobic, then it wouldn't matter to me. I wouldn't want to hang out with you. But just being us, why does my identity doesn't come anywhere for you to judge me for who I know I am?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
It's nobody else's business.
And just so people know about this, we're talking about the Heineken commercial. And
Yeah,
you should
the Heineken
Google that.
commercial,
It's
yeah.
on YouTube, but it's a brilliant commercial where they put two very different people together that
Yeah.
don't know who they
Yeah.
are. They build this bar together, and at the end of the building of the bar, they show a quick video of the person and their views, and they have like a transphobic person who builds the bar with a trans person. And then all of a sudden, they know each other.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing because before I left my full-time, the manufacturing job, a new vice president, I used to work for the VP, new vice president started, okay? Republican, hardcore. And he did not like trans people until he met me.
he probably didn't know trans people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? So we started working together, and I was really a good worker, right? So I'm a procrastinator, so anything he needed, I got it right away, whatever. But he would tell me, he goes, yeah, I went home and, I was telling my kids, like, no, listen, we're not thinking right when it comes to trans people. This guy, Tony, I'm telling you, he's amazing. They would not even hear it. They would not even hear it. His wife turned the corner, but his children, they were like, nope, sorry. And they hate trans. That's what I'm saying. You might not understand who I am, and you might not agree with who I am, but why do you hate me so much that you would hurt me because of it? That's what's scary.
The irony is if you went to a barbecue at their house and they didn't know anything about you and you were there and they were like, oh my God, Tony, what a great guy. We had so much fun with him. He was wonderful. Everybody loves you. Yeah. And then somebody says, oh, by the way, he's trans. And then they're like, oh, I don't like Tony.
Yeah, let's barbecue him. Put him on the grill. No, I'm kidding.
So are there any concluding thoughts you'd like to share with us that, you could wrap this up with?
Yeah, listen, first of all, you two are great. And if you don't watch this podcast, if you watch this podcast because I'm on it, watch it all the time. But let's just rally and be kind to each other. You don't have to understand. I don't understand who the two of you are. My God, I don't understand who you are, but I still like you as a human. You know, I mean, we don't have to be alike and we don't have to have the same thoughts and same beliefs. Just be kind. It would be such a better world if you just be kind and accept that people are not like you sometimes.
Tony, thank you so very, very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
You were great. Thank you.